Welcome to the Gigging Success Podcast. And now, here's your host, Brad Lazarus.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gigging Success Podcast, where you'll discover the tactics and strategies of some of the world's most successful cover bands that'll help you fast track your way to more of those better paid gigs you deserve. Thanks for joining me. On this week's show, I am talking to Brad Wills of the band Black Market. They're like an indie rock, classic rock act, primarily playing at pubs, clubs and private and corporate events. So the reason I wanted to get Brad on was that he's doing what a lot of listeners are doing, so this hopefully will appeal to you in the sense that he's got a full-time career and he runs his own small recruitment business, but he also concentrates quite heavily on his bands and really considers himself semi-pro in that respect. So we talk a little bit about how he blends his lifestyle and how he brings the two of those together, the bit about the positioning and how he kind of markets his band, and how he gets his gigs and how he deals with other band members, etc. So I'll let him do the talking, so let's get straight into the interview. Right, hi, I am with Brad Wills today of a band who runs a band called Black Market Band. Brad and I were conversing on Facebook through one of the posts which I'd put up there for our blog post, and he spoke a lot of sense in his post, so I took the initiative to get in touch with him, and here he is. How are you, Brad?
Hi, Brad, I'm well, thank you.
Good. This is weird, isn't it?
A little
Brad?
bit. Two Brads on the same call.
Brads don't normally meet too many Brads in the UK, to be honest, do they? So that's good. So I know it's at the end of your kind of working day. You kind of you run your own business, don't you? So thanks for kind of taking the time. Maybe that kind of leads us in nicely to a little bit about what you're all about. What do you do, and how does it relate to kind of music and all the rest of it?
Okay, so from my perspective, I run a band called Black Market. We're an indie rock covers band, and I simultaneously run a small recruitment business that focuses in on the rail and transportation industry. Both elements of my life, I suppose, are kind of lifestyle businesses. So the band is very much a lifestyle arrangement. We're certainly not the most busy band. We don't gig as much as our peers, perhaps. And equally, my business is similar. We don't turn over huge amounts of money, but what it does allow is a lifestyle that allows me to spend a bit more time with my two children and my wife, etc. So that's where we're coming from.
Great, and we should just fill the listeners in a little bit as to the kind of band you are.
Yes, I pitch us and describe us as a rock festival in a single act, I suppose. We focus in on the indie rock kind of genre, I suppose, and focus in on everything from kind of older school classic rock songs occasionally, but more on the kind of edgy, more recent indie kind of scene, I suppose, and the kind of acts that you would see at a typical Reading Rock Festival, which, given that we're from Reading, seemed quite apt at the time.
Right, okay. And the band's been going for 3 years?
4 years in total, I think.
Right.
I joined in early 2011, so we're kind of coming up for 3 years with me, but they were formed a couple of months before me initially with another singer, and it didn't really work out.
Right. And just can you give us a sense of kind of how often you're playing? How many performances you're doing and where they are, just so we can get context for it?
We aim for about 24 performances a year, so two a month. We've to add some context to that. 3 of the band members have multiple children, and
multiple children,
that makes it we all have commitments, quite significant commitments outside of the band. I suppose we achieve somewhere between 22 and 26 gigs a year, dependent on how busy the kind of key periods are through summer and Christmas and that kind of thing. But at a level that we're at a level that we're all comfortable with.
And how long has it taken you to get to that point?
It's probably been it probably took a year to get to the point where we can consistently book gigs. I think it never gets permanently to that level. You can easily take your foot off the gas, and actually I probably did that towards the turn of this year, owing to kind of my personal life, I suppose. And it's amazing how quickly the gigs dry up and there's suddenly nothing in the calendar. We're fortunate in that we've got a good reputation around the public venues, and that then leads on to awareness for kind of bigger and more private events, I suppose.
And when you're talking about those 24, 25 gigs a year, how many of those are you doing kind of like your good paying weddings, corporates, privates, and how many of those are kind of public?
I suppose 16 to 18 or so. We probably play. I suppose we play once every couple of months in public, up to once a month. I suppose depends on what time of year it is as well. I mean, in summer you tend to find that we're booked doing weddings every other week. And
so the
majority
are your well paid. Private stuff. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Cool. Excellent. And one of the things that you've kind of done well, we've briefly touched on it, was the whole kind of positioning of the band. I think there's so many bands out there that just look and sound and seem the same, and they give the prospective client kind of no real reason as to why they should choose them or why they're different. Yeah. So how did you go about thinking that through? When I kind of say positioning, I should just clarify, it's a relatively kind of advanced marketing kind of concept, but it's basically about how people perceive what you are as a band, what they think about when they look at you. And what I think about when I look at your band is that you are something slightly different from the norm. So how did you think about your positioning? How did you go about thinking that through?
Well, firstly, that's nice of you to say so. But I suppose
you might have done it by accident. I don't know.
It was all an accident. No, I think the thought process that went on was very much around what do we think is cool. We are a particular demographic of kind of between, I suppose, 30 and 45 as a rough guide as a band, and we've all been in covers bands and been in functions bands in the past, and we've all done the kind of party kind of thing and some of the same old songs that come up in any band, and that absolutely has a place in the marketplace. But it's quite difficult to start something new and stand out in that space. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people that are realistically probably better than you at that because they've been doing it for years and years. So we sat down and we looked at what we wanted to play as a band and you know the songs and the repertoire that would keep us interested, and that very much started to go down the rock festival kind of route, really. I suppose we've all grown up around Reading, so we've all grown up around Reading Rock Festival. And actually, when I analysed it, 95% of the bands that we've covered, or the songs that we've covered, have taken place or have been played at Reading Festival in the past. So I suppose it was a combination of what we thought was cool and what we thought other people would think was cool, without necessarily a consideration as to whether that was going to be something that was accepted for corporate and wedding and function type events. But we've developed it into a pitch that's very clear. We're either the right band for your event or we're not, and we're not scared to say you're going to do better to have a different kind of band to us for your event. And I think that brings a level of trust and rapport from people generally, and that's stood us in good stead. So we end up playing the right kind of event. And what we tend to find is that once you've established that you're the right band, you can pretty much charge what you like within reason. Not, it's not going to get silly, but you can certainly charge a small premium if you are the perfect band for the event mentioned.
Mm. And you didn't necessarily set about thinking what does the market want. This is a natural evolution for you, was it?
it became about what the market wanted after it had been about what we wanted. So it has taken a twist. If we were purely the edgy kind of indie rock band that we'd love to be all the time, we'd never have anybody listening to us. I don't think we'd be so left of the beaten track that we'd be in the bushes. So we actually developed that and kind of toned that down once we'd established actually this pure indie rock kind of approach doesn't work all the time. It's got to be softened up to what clients want, and you know, traditionally they don't want to sing along at the end of the night as well as kind of the cooler stuff.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. That was the one thing that appealed to me when we were on the thread on the Facebook post is very much that approach has very much been my approach when I've come to look to manage acts and then position them and market them. Mm-hmm. It's very much about choosing acts that you can almost feel as though they can dominate the niche. Yes,
and as I said at the beginning, we are a lifestyle band, so we're not necessarily looking to dominate all the time. But I like to think that if there's a booking that requires a particularly rocky or edgy feel to it, then we'd have a distinct advantage over a band that do some of that and some of something else and mix it all up. So that's where we've focused in on is being the right band for that kind of event.
Absolutely. I mean, when I say kind of dominate, I don't mean it in this necessarily kind of overly kind of aggressive business-like way. It's more of a kind of a mindset that if you wanted to be able to do that, you could. And it kind of makes you think in a quite a focused way about who you're trying to appeal to.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the theories of marketing any band can be applied at everything from the kind of hobby and mates at school type level all the way through to the professional, semi-professional kind of arena that we tend to focus on.
Well, because the same rules apply.
Very much so. It doesn't change at any level. It's just the thing that changes is the level of commitment that's involved in each stage. The theories stay the same most of the time.
Absolutely, and it depends on the amount of time that you're prepared to put into it, and whether you see this as something which is, as you say, is if it's a hobby, then you wouldn't necessarily invest as much money in it. But if it is going to be a significant part of your income or even your full-time income, it needs to be invested in that way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent. So, one thing that when we kind of chatted before the podcast, you were quite open, rightly so in my view, about learning and listening to the competition that's out there, thinking about what their best ideas are, and then using them.
Stealing their ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You stand accused. I think it's what every good business person does, and I think it's only good practice to do that. That's not plagiarizing.
Absolutely. I term it as we borrow the best of the competition, if you like. So there are bands that have been around for a number of years. Some of them you've featured on your podcasts in the past. We've got a good relationship with Graham from Daft, who we've dealt with a few times. We've played one of his festivals. I've known Graham for years and years, and it's learning from his experience to apply the things that are relevant to what we want to achieve as well. And I think that goes all the way through from both learning their ideas in terms of marketing, all the way through to building relationships with, everybody from the people that are completely off the beaten track to what you do, all the way through to bands that are your direct competition. I mean, I'll mention there's a band that are local to us. They're called the Chili Fighters. They do very much the same sort of thing as we do. And we've got a great relationship with them because actually that's another kind of prong to the marketing machine in that because we're so similar, if they pick up a gig that they can't do, then they can call us and we can cover it with a degree of competence, and vice versa. We can confidently say to a client, we can't make this gig, but the band that you should speak to are our friends down the road, and they'll do very much the same thing. So it's the kind of using other bands. goes all the way through our philosophy in terms of learning and kind of being able to exchange ideas. And much the same as any of the bands I've mentioned, they'd all encourage contact, as would I, from anybody that wants to just chew the fat and just have a conversation about the way things go in the covers band industry, what we could all do to improve things, and just get a different perspective on what we're trying to do, what they're trying to do, and everything.
And those conversations do you find that they turn to conversations of marketing and sales, or are you specifically talking about the music?
I suppose they vary across the board. I mean, it depends on the individuals you're talking about. Graham will happily talk to you about anything marketing orientated, as will I, as will the leader of the Chili Fighters, and they have a different structure to us in that a couple of people deal with the marketing and the inquiry side of things, and both of them will give you an input and have a chat to you. And I mean, that's even spread to their bass player as depth for our bass player in the past, and vice versa. So it's very much a kind of evolving relationship that kind of covers everything.
Right. And how do you kind of, you talked in terms of how the Chili Fighters kind of split. How do you split the workload within Black Market? I mean, is there a one leader of the band, or how are you splitting things up?
I suppose officially there's not a leader. Naturally, because I'm perhaps have a little bit more free time than the others, I tend to take the lead on bookings. I've taken the lead on the technical side in terms of the sound system and the PA side of things, and how we set ourselves up technically, because that's something that particularly interests me and I have a lot of passion for. But the promotional side of things also has input from our drummer, who has written and designed our entire website from scratch. The site that you see is all his design work. He's a graphic designer by trade, so that side of things is very much covered. And then everybody has the opportunity to have a say on at every level. But I think you do have to have somebody that's prepared to take the lead and occasionally make decisions on the spur of the moment. And you have to have the systems and procedures in place to be able to do that as well. And that tends to fall to me just naturally, to be honest.
Right. I was just going to ask you that question then. How have you decided as a band that you're the one that is almost kind of taking the lead? Or, as you say, it felt quite natural to do that? It's
just evolved into that. I mean, I've got some experience previously from other bands of managing bookings and managing the inquiry side of things. My profession outside of the band leads me into being fairly good at building rapport and talking to people and generally selling to people, because that's what I'm doing day in, day out. So it very much naturally fell, but it's never become an official Brad is the band leader. There is still a feeling that everybody can have a say when they want to, but there has to be a degree of trust to allow things to actually happen. Otherwise you end up discussing a lot and actually not doing very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So just going back to this idea of kind of building rapport, I know that there are a lot of musicians and listeners to the podcast who struggle a little bit with the idea of kind of picking up the phone, having the conversation about, trying to close the booking and talking about money. How do you, I know it to a certain extent because of your line of business, it's probably quite natural for you, but have you got anything that you can add to that?
That's a tricky question. I mean, it depends on the client every single time. Different people will react better to different kinds of closes. Some, we've had wedding bookings that have wanted to come and see us play a couple of times before they commit to booking us, and that's fine, and that's one type of close, if you like, is to wow them with the music, if you like. the presumptive close of I'll get the band booked in then, is always always inspires at least a reaction, and generally listening to what the client is trying to tell you. If it's an immediate booking, then advising them that an immediate commitment is going to be pretty important is always a good way of doing things as well.
I suppose so from a practical point of view, if an inquiry's coming in, do you ask on your inquiry form that they offer their telephone number? Is that?
We do. This is something that's been up for debate within Black Market fairly recently, actually, in that there are different people that react differently to different approaches. My approach and my general feeling whenever I want to buy something is that I want to talk to somebody and want to discuss it with them. And I perhaps naively went in the early days of really believing that everybody should want to have a conversation. Actually, some people don't want to have a conversation. They just want an idea of what you're going to do for them, how much it's going to cost. And actually, one of the things that we've borrowed from the competition is the development of packages particularly for the wedding kind of environment. Not necessarily because we want to have a set way of doing things and everything else, but the things that the client gives away from telling you what kind of package they're looking for gives you an immediate idea of where the client is and what level you're going to be able to sell the band to them at.
The packages came up when we did I did the podcast with Graham from Daft online.
Yes, we might.
So if anybody listening wants to go,
the competition we borrowed it from.
Oh, I wouldn't have worked that one out. Yeah, I think if anybody wants to go and have a listen to that, they should go and just get onto the Gigging Success website and just search for Graham Daft. Not the other way around. That wouldn't be nice. But it's So you talk about the packages there. So it's almost kind of like, the prospect is almost kind of falling into what it is you've got to offer them when you're offering packages, aren't you?
Absolutely. And as I say, it's not, we would generally do the best job we can at every gig, but it does give you an idea of where the client is as soon as they answer that question. Which package were you looking at? Well, if they're going at the ultimate top end package, then you know that you've got a big wedding and a big opportunity to kind of maximise your income. If they're, perhaps pushing the budget, the budget is being squeezed already and they're at the bottom end, that to secure the booking, you've got to be quite competitive. So, I don't think we're a particularly expensive band anyway, but it does make a difference if you can squeeze an extra £100 on one booking to be able to kind of knock it off of the bottom end, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. So when an inquiry's has come in, you've got the phone number. Are you immediately picking up the phone then and calling them, or are you sending through maybe a quote on an email and then seeing if you get a response? What's your process?
I will normally email back immediately or as quickly as I can make an email anyway. Obviously dependent on what I'm doing at work, but normally within 20 minutes, half an hour, there's a response back to the client, and that will normally consist of, look, could we have a quick chat about what you're looking for and a brief idea, could we schedule a quick conversation? People will either say, no, could you just send me an email, or we'll say absolutely, and book in a time. And then
okay, so you're not sending anything apart from a suggestion to have a conversation.
No,
or if they don't, you'll then send.
That's on the presumption that they've read our website and that's how they've got to our contact page, if you like. So I don't necessarily think, from our perspective, a mass of further marketing material is going to be going to make much difference. Hopefully they've had a read through and are thinking that we could be of interest. So
right, and then you're either having that conversation. What's your process then after that? Are you following up if you don't hear from them, or how's that?
Yeah,
panning
I
out?
think simple follow-ups. If it goes past a week and you haven't had any kind of response from your quote, I tend to just drop a single line email that says, "Are you still looking for a band?" And that's just habit, really. Is look through my list of people that have inquired and make sure there's nothing else I can do. And as I say, it'll normally be, "Are you still looking for a band? Is there any more information that you need from me?" And you tend to find that either kind of piques their interest and brings people back to life, or you get an answer of, "No, we've already found someone," which is much, at least then.
At least and you can cross them off.
Absolutely.
And spend your time doing something more productive.
Yes, in theory.
In theory. Okay, and in terms of the other, because obviously with Gigging Success, we're quite biased towards the kind of the sales and marketing side of things. Is there anything that you feel as though that you're doing at the moment or have done that's been successful for you, has given the band a lift or a boost in terms of bookings over the last kind of year or so?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things actually. I suppose the photos, use of photos in social media has been a big change in how we interact with people, I suppose. And that was a tip from Gigging Success from a while back, and that has changed the way we interact with people. People see themselves on our Facebook page and become engaged quite quickly. I suppose the video testimonials thing that was discussed in the original kind of Gigging Success podcast.
In the webinar,
webinar. That's right.
Right, yeah, I did a webinar, where I brought that one up.
That massively struck a chord with me, and it was like a light bulb moment, and that's in the process at the moment. We've gathered, I don't know, eight or so video testimonials, and we've had some great responses from those, and then we've kind of rough cut those, so we've sent those to clients that have been interested in weddings and functions and things like that. And I'm not necessarily sure it's always secured us the booking, but it's certainly given them something as food for thought, and to realise that we provide a decent quality product, if you like.
Because my kind of suggested way of doing that is basically doing the cheapest, easiest way possible, is to take an iPhone to a gig, and when you finish, you come off stage and then people are coming up and shaking your hand and saying what a great performance. Yeah. You ask them for a testimonial on to camera. Is that what you were doing then?
Yes, but we've used a digital SLR. It's the only difference, really. We've also pre-arranged that with a couple of a bride and a corporate booking client to say, look, it's at half time. Would you mind just having a quick word to camera to let people know what you think of us? And I've not had anybody badly react to that or any kind of negative response to that. In fact, the people that have done it have been quite excited about it almost, and to the point that we haven't actually had to go and find them. They've just come and found us and said, you wanted to have a quick chat to me to camera, and suddenly they're offering their own offering their testimonial to you on a plate.
Right. Well, I mean, I always say this about, particularly if it's a bride and groom client, if you think about the language that they use when they're talking about the band, they call you our wedding band.
Absolutely.
They've kind of almost taking ownership, so they'll almost kind of do anything for you at that point, particularly if you're at the end of your first set maybe, and
Absolutely.
You've kind of rocked the place.
Absolutely, and they've had a few drinks as well by that point. I mean, the one of the ones we've got, the bride's got her husband's tie wrapped around her head in a kind of rock and roll style, which. Right. I mean, that kind of thing is priceless, really. It shows people that they're having a great time and that they're enjoying what they're doing.
Absolutely, you get the kind of the passion, the excitement, encapsulated in video. I really don't think there's anything better than a video testimonial to sell a band. To be honest,
it's a great tip and it's a great secret. Don't tell everyone.
They've got to listen to this to hear it. So, okay, cool. Well, that's great. I'm really pleased that you're kind of getting something out of that. Are you not? I noticed though you're not putting those videos on the website.
They're not on the website at the moment because the blend into the live recordings that we've done, I haven't got around to editing together yet. So they will be up there very shortly. That's one of my things to.
When you say the blend into that, are you creating like an edit with the
videos,
so you'll see the testimonial and the?
Yeah, on our website there's a live recording from a festival we did last year, and quite simply all we've done is between each song there's a snippet of each song on the video, and what we've done is kind of spliced the testimonials in between those songs just to give it a bit of variation and kind of an idea of people recommending us, as well as being able to see what the music is all about, and that I think they're both equally as important.
Right, excellent. Okay. Well, listen, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of cover here? I think we've covered quite a lot of stuff in depth there. I noticed on your website, actually thinking about it, you've got quite a nice FAQs page.
Yes, yeah.
Is that something that you've spent some time on? Because I mean, my feeling towards FAQs pages is a lot of the time you will get clients looking outside and researching your band outside of kind of normal working hours or hours when you might be able to take a phone call. So offering them as much and answering as many questions as possible without them having to pick up the phone, I think is huge these days. And you've obviously kind of taken that and run with that on the FAQs page.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what it says on the tin. I think they're the questions that we found we were answering so many times that we just decided there must be a better way of kind of preparing people. Not everybody reads it, to be honest. You still answer a lot of those questions every time you take a booking, but having it there means that at least some of the noise that's created by that side is cut down, and that helps in terms of reducing my workload in some ways, in terms of helping people through the booking. And I think the thing that really needs to be understood is that every gig is different, and that's quite a difficult point to make in the frequently asked questions page, if you like, is that every gig has different requirements, and there is no set cost, there's no set kind of way of doing things. It's different for each gig, and so we've taken what we can, and then I can fill in the gaps with conversation and qualification, if you like, of what the booking's going to involve.
Right, excellent. And now I've saved the very best till last because I love what you do here. Tell us about your technical rehearsal.
Okay, so I mean, we as a band we don't travel particularly light. We've got quite a lot of kit. The guitarist and pretty much all of us are kind of audio junkies, I suppose. So we all use decent professional level equipment, some of which is quite complicated to set up and set down. Especially if the guys initially were perhaps a bit novice around that kind of thing, and certainly the PA system and the lighting side of things. And whilst it's not hugely complex, it was taking longer than we needed it to at functions and events to get set up and set down. So quite simply, what we did was put up get together a hall and literally set up the kit and set it down again, just so that
right.
Everybody knew what their job was and everybody knows what they should be doing at each point in the event, and that makes a difference to the speed at which we can set up and set down, and just maintains a level of professionalism. Now, the problem with that is that it changes. I mean, we're probably due another one because we've changed our PA system to a top-end PA system in the last kind of 6 months, and there's the odd bit of confusion around that. But generally speaking, the kit has stayed relatively consistent, and that means that we're still fairly slick in terms of setting up and setting down, and that comes from kind of purely focusing in on that as a customer service issue more than anything else.
And okay, so do you communicate that to your prospective client, and almost kind of communicate the fact that that's like a selling point, really, isn't it?
I suppose we don't really. If I'm honest, we try and include it as. I suppose we've always perceived that it was an important part of what we do, we just do it. I guess we could probably incorporate that into the conversation, at least around, we know what we're doing when we set up and set down. We're not going to be there with, speakers on poles that are kind of going to fall over and things like that.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think it's just a case of, I always call them kind of hygienic factors. They're not related necessarily. They're not directly related to the band and the music side of things,
but they certainly impact the day.
They massively impact the day, because those are the things that the bride or the client is, what are they lying awake at night thinking about? Are the band going to be able to get set up in that hour that I've given them, or are they going to run over and the whole night's going to run over? So being able to kind of communicate that, I think would be of huge value. My first thought there was to film it and do like a speeded up version of it,
time-lapse video.
You can
great
kind of
shout.
show it to them, and it just all this stuff kind of just really fills the prospect with confidence that they are dealing with pros.
Absolutely.
Everything's going to go absolutely fine, because by that, when you're talking to them at that point about the hygiene factors, as I call them, they're sold on you almost as the band.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So all the rest of it is just kind of, it's just kind of ticking boxes, really, isn't it, for them in their heads, which is
absolutely. And I think it gives you a degree of confidence as a band that, I mean, inevitably, weddings, corporate functions, military functions, they all run over. It's just the way they work. So having the confidence when the bride comes in and says, actually, you're only going to get 45 minutes, an hour, rather than the hour and a half that you originally scheduled in, means that you can confidently say to her, don't worry, it's going to be fine. We'll just double up what we've been doing, or we'll do it a bit quicker, or we'll cut short the sound check, because we've got to a stage now where most of the sound check is actually done, because of digital technology and things like that. Most of it's done before we get to the venue. So it is just a case of the hygiene factors and keeping the bride or the client happy that things are going to go smoothly. And that seems to be the biggest worry that I see kind of post-booking, is that everything's going to be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we surveyed our last 100 private clients.
Right.
And it was fascinating to see the results. By far, the biggest issue that they had was literally, will the band turn up?
Right.
Now, as a kind of professional, in inverted commas, whether you're full time or whatever, you behave professionally. It's almost baffling to think that they would even consider there would be a no-show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think from our perspective, I will always drop a text message or a call or whatever to the client or the bride or whatever, and the night before, and say everything's still fine and we're all okay. In fact, that probably happens a couple of weeks before as well, generally, just to say, look, we're all still fine and everything's all good, and because that's the point that things are starting to ramp up in their minds, and their minds are starting to get a bit busy, so we always kind of keep that communication open, just so that people know that it's actually going to happen and it's all going to be okay. So, and that's a general kind of sales tip, or I suppose recruiter's tip, is that you kind of check it all the way through to actually happening and actually delivering the booking.
Yeah, it's comforting for the client.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? So yeah. Brad, we've come to the end. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I really appreciate it. I know
Thank you.
It's been a long day for both of us. So thanks so much. And, if anybody wants to go and check you out and contact you, where can they go?
They can use our website, which is www.blackmarketband.co.uk. There's demos and videos and all sorts of information and photos and things like that on there. You can find us on Facebook. We're Band Black Market on Facebook, and we are...
someone got there first.
Yeah, didn't they? And we're Black Market Band on Twitter as well. So, and that was one of the other kind of marketing things that might drop in. We discovered a product called Buffer very recently, One of the issues I found is that we tend to lose engagement when we're not consistent with it. And this is a system that allows you to post to Facebook and to Twitter simultaneously, but spread your posts out. So you might spend, an hour on Monday morning, for example, writing all of your posts for the whole week, and it'll spread them out to morning, afternoon, morning, afternoon, morning, afternoon.
You can set the times,
and it's
can't
a great way of scheduling interaction with your audience and to let you go and get on with the rest of your life. So
fantastic.
That was the only other thing I was going to
That's Buffer app, isn't
in.
it? Yeah. No. I think that's a great one. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of people use. I mean, the internet marketing world. The Buffer app has been used a hell of a lot, and it's a really kind of useful thing. It seems to be kind of crossing over now, which is great, because otherwise the whole social media thing literally can consume your life.
Yes, absolutely,
and you become quite disheartened when you don't get a kind of engagement and a response back. So that's a great tip. Thank you. We're coming up to 40 minutes. I like to keep it under. So thanks again.
You're welcome.
And let's catch up again. In a few months' time. Have you back on, see how things are progressing.
Absolutely. Lovely. Thanks
Brilliant.
for your time.
Thanks, Brad.
Cheers.
Have a nice evening.
Bye bye.
Cheers. So thank you to Brad for his time on that. I hope you found that useful. Lots of really interesting things to think about in there if you're following a similar path to Brad. So just finally, before you go, if you want to get some more information on some free info on how to get some more gigs almost immediately, then go to gigingsuccess.com/CBE and you can download my 5 free and easy killer tactics and strategies to get more bookings and dominate your competition in the current economy. Getting loads of people coming back to me saying, look, we've tried this, is what you suggested, and it seems to be working, which is great. That's the idea. So until next time, happy gigging.